Trucker Dump, episode 182. This week we're going to discuss Congress's controversial intercession in the pending railroad strike. Also, both the FMCSA and individual states are making it harder for truckers in some aspects and easier in others. Facebook seems to be discriminating against female truckers when it comes to trucking jobs. I'll tell you about a government-funded research grant that might actually yield something useful for a change of pace. And to keep you out of trouble, we'll also talk about what you need to know about counting the costs before you go into owning your own truck and what you should do if you find yourself in one of those massive weather-related pileups. All that plus more news and a couple of listener feedbacks from Steve and Trailrider. Steve shares his totally honest opinion about the new format of the show. Spoiler alert, not a fan. While Trailrider asked me a question about the 60 hours in 7 days versus the 70 hours in 8 days that, frankly, I need your help answering. So stick around for that, please. This episode of Trucker Dump is sponsored by Porter Freight Funding. You can learn more at porterfreightfunding.com/truckerdump or give them a call at 205-576-8257. Hi diddly ho, here we go.
Welcome to Trucker Dump, where you'll get one driver's insights and sometimes humorous views of truck driving and the trucking industry, and pretty much anything else he feels like dumping on you. This podcast is brought to you by AboutTruckDriving.com, resources to help you understand the world of truck driving through the use of stories and a pathetic attempt at humor.
Yeah boy, here we go. Yep, I did it again. I waited till Friday afternoon to start the podcast. That's for a Saturday release. Well, I do have some blame in this, of course, because, well, it is my podcast. Yeah, I didn't work Monday after the holiday, which means I had 5 full days off. I had Thursday, basically all of Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then I didn't get called into work Monday. So all those days, and well, I chose to have fun on the holiday, and on Monday, instead of starting on the podcast like I should have done with the full day off, I decided to play Lego Superheroes 2 with the Evil Overlord. Well, we're at 90.7%, so we're going to have that sucker licked next week. If it kills us, which it may. Probably multiple times. That's the way video games work. But anyway, yes, I waited again, and this time, boy, I'm going to get screwed on this one for sure. It is 1:46 in the afternoon. No, I take that back. It's 2:46 in the afternoon, which is pretty late for me getting in. And when I do get in that late, typically they call me back on my 10 hours. So, by the time I get this podcast recorded, I will edit it tomorrow. But by the time I get it recorded, organized, all that stuff, yeah, I'll probably get about 3 or 4 hours of sleep. I know nobody likes to hear that, and, especially the Evil Overlord, which is my wife and co-driver, but thankfully she does not listen to the show. So anyway, I guess I should quit rambling and get on with it, huh? For those of you who are new to the show, my name is Todd McCann. I'm a 25-year truck driver, all of that, company driver, never been an owner-operator, so if you're looking for that kind of information, you're in the wrong place. Lots of other good podcasts out there for that kind of stuff. But I am not a complete slacker. Not only have I done this podcast since 2012, but I've also written 2 trucking ebooks. The first is called How to Find a Great Truck Driving Job, and the second is called Trucking Life. Both of those are really designed for newbies, but you can also get some entertainment out of the Trucking Life book, since it has a 9.25 hour audiobook in it, and you'll find some funny stories in there and things that happened to me and the Evil Overlord along the way. Some funny stories there. And also How to Find a Great Truck Driving Job. Again, great for newbies who don't know what they're asking when they go for their first truck driving job, but also for experienced drivers who would like to get a nice, handy checklist. So you can have a good organized way to interview lots of different companies and make sure you're not forgetting to ask any questions along the way. Sure, you can make a list of those yourself, but why bother when I've already done it for you? And here at the beginning of December, I am here to announce that I am running a special on the trucking ebook combo pack that is only available at abouttruckdriving.com. Normally, those 2 books as a combo pack are 25% off. That's $14.98. But for the next little while. I'm not sure how long, probably through the end of the year, but let's just pretend it's not and it expires tomorrow. That way you'll go order it today. 50% off. How about that? 2 books for the price of one, $9.99 is all that will cost you. So if you've ever wanted to contribute to the show and you want to get something for it instead of just donating, well, go and have a look at that. That's abouttruckdriving.com. Just click right up there on the main page. You'll see up in the menu, the books, and you'll be able to check that out right there. So enough about that. I guess before we get on with the show, I should ask you how your Thanksgiving went. Mine was pretty good, had lots of good food. The evil overlord tried a turkey meatloaf for a change of pace because we're not really big turkey fans, honestly, but this turkey meatloaf was pretty freaking good. It was a pain in the butt to make, lots of tiny little dicing of veggies and stuff like that to go in it, carrots and celery and all that crap, and I got to help with that. Thankfully, I didn't slice my freaking hand off like I almost did a couple of years ago, but we got that done. Took that over to the evil overlord's sister's house where we hung out with the nephews and a bunch of other people we weren't expecting. Thankfully, the evil overlord always prepares way more food than we actually need. I think she baked about 120 cookies or so while we were there. Yeah, that's the way she rolls. And of course, I got to take none of those home. They all stayed with the nephews, those little jerks. Well, I call them little jerks. They're all way bigger than me now. So anyway, hope you had a good Thanksgiving. Hope you had lots of good food also. As you may or may not have noticed, there was not a show last week. I am still not used to doing this weekly format. And if I had thought in advance, I would have just told you the week before that, hey, there's not going to be a podcast next week because of the holiday, but I never think that far in advance. I don't know why. Like I said, just not used to this weekly format yet. So I'll just go ahead and tell you now, there will not be a podcast probably the week of Christmas or the week of New Year's. That'd be my guess. And hopefully I'll actually remember to remind you of that. Whether we have a guest post or not, I don't know. We will see. Again, I just may not have the energy to lift a finger on a holiday. Well, as I mentioned on Facebook and the Trucker Dump Slack group, that, I was just so lazy. I could have asked somebody to do a guest post. I'm sure Steven would have done another one, but I didn't even want to lift a finger to put in any show notes, to copy and paste his audio into my audio file and post it, because that takes, like a few minutes, and I'm just too lazy for that around the holiday. Isn't everybody? I mean, really, come on. All right. So here I am rambling, talking about how I really want to get in bed and I'm just prolonging things. Maybe I should just get on with it with the news. Yowza, Todd. For Pete's sake, your voice is drying up already and you haven't even got started. Ugh. Okay, we've got one quick recall. It probably won't affect many of you because of the type of the trucks. This affects 26,000 Navistar vehicles, but the Navistars are HV trucks, MV, HX, LT. Whoa, LT, I didn't see that in there. So this will affect a lot of you. RH and Lone Star vehicles. These are 2022 and 2023 models. Basically, what's happening here is a hex flange lock nut used in the suspension and steering joints was improperly heat treated, and that may break, and that can cause your steering to be wobbly and unstable. Unstable? Is that a word? Is that a word? Unstable. Well, anyway, leading to steering instability. There we go, and increasing the risk of a crash. If you're affected by this, you will be mailed a letter on January 20th. And if you want all the details for the phone number to check that out in advance and the recall number, just head on over here to landline.media. See, I did that super fast. Hey, did you see all those crazy pictures of the Flying J that went up in smoke in San Antonio this week? Yeah, that happened on December 1st around 5:15 a.m. This was the Flying J, like I said, and this was the one in San Antonio right there on I-10, and man, it went up. I guess it was a grease fire in Denny's. They're not exactly sure how it happened, but they're pretty sure it happened inside Denny's. And like I said, this started at 5:15 a.m. and it was still really on fire by 11 a.m. They said it was fueled by wind and grease. So, well, there you go. So anyway, this will be down for quite a while. It looks like it is a total loss. Thankfully, it doesn't look like any of the tractors in the area were harmed. And more importantly, of course, all the customers and employees were outside of the building, or they got out in time. So everybody was unharmed. So that, of course, is the most important news. And the other important news is you want to make sure you don't plan on parking at this Flying J in San Antonio for quite some time. They're going to have some rebuilding to do. Found this one on CDL Life. Well, I actually think I saw it on Facebook first, but not everybody has Facebook, so I'll put a link in the show notes to cdllife.com. You really need to head on over here and check out these photos. As Eddie Murphy would say, that's a pie. Man, I suck at impressions. Onward. All right, on the topic of losing parking spaces, let's stick with cdllife.com for this one. All right, I'll spare you the title of this one because it's mega long, but let me just tell you that these two truck stops are the Beckley and the Bluestone, two of their biggest right there on the West Virginia Turnpike on I-77. They are going to be closed starting February of this coming year. And they will be rebuilt from the ground up, which means construction is going to be going on through late 2024. So that's almost 2 years that these rest areas are going to be down. And, as you know, if you've ever been on I-77 before, there's not a lot of parking along through there already. So just be prepared for that. You're not going to be able to stop at these and get any parking. But they are going to modernize these completely. Bring in new food options, electric vehicle charging stations, new pet areas, new picnic areas. They're just going to redo them completely, and they're going to be adding more spots. 10 more truck parking spaces to the Bluestone Travel Plaza. And I believe the bigger one is the Beckley facility. That one's going to be getting 35 extra parking spaces, bringing the total up to 165. So anyway, just wanted to give you a heads up on this one. Make sure you do not plan on parking, plan on other parking, I should say, on the West Virginia Turnpike starting in February. Check out all the details for this one, cdllife.com. All right, what say we get into the topic of states that are doing some good and bad things for truckers. And those states involve Texas, New Jersey, and the first one we're going to talk about here is New York State. Found this one on landline.media. Proposed toll increase for New York Thruway outrageous, says state legislator. So on November 30th, the New York State Thruway Authority said they were going to increase tolls beginning in 2024. Now that is a little ways off, but here's what they got planned. They say it's going to be a 5% increase in 2024 for in-state Easy Pass users, with an additional increase of 5% coming in 2027. But for drivers without an Easy Pass or with one from another state, the proposed increase is 75% over what it is now. Holy crapiola. Now, they're trying to say that the reason they need to do that is because it has been many, many years since they have charged anything more. It's always been the same price for many years. And they say 75% of their bridges are over 60 years old. They've got a lot of them that need repair. And of course, they want to, get the taxpayers for this and the people who are traveling the tollway. Now, the thing is this really pissed off some of the politicians there. They're talking about, hey, in these trying times with the economy the way it is, you want to go and sock it to these, to the citizens. That's not cool. But again, they are proposing this does not go into effect until 2024. So hopefully we will be out of this economic funk by then because, let's hope it doesn't stick around that long for Pete's sake. But anyway, just want to give you a heads up that this is what they're planning. This is the way states at least they're not going after just truckers on this one. We've heard of other states that do that, and it was ruled unconstitutional, and I believe that was Connecticut, and Connecticut's fighting that now, of course, because they want to get their money out of truckers. Only truckers, not their citizens, just only truckers. Not cool. Anyway, that's all there is for that one. Again, landline.media. Next state, let's switch up to Texas. And actually, something good is happening here. Again, found this on landline.media. Texas bill would end red light camera use. This is why I love Texas. Now, I lived there for a while and didn't much enjoy it because I don't like hot and I don't like big cities. And I was living in Dallas. But hey, I was going to school down there and needed to. But regardless, I do love Texas for one thing. They don't give a crap about what any other state thinks. They do what they think is right, and they have no convictions about it whatsoever. So while the rest of the world is screaming, we got to do everything to make the road safer, they're just like, this ain't working. We don't like it. We're getting rid of it. It's gone. And it's pretty much, that's all it is. They are completely getting rid of the red light camera system. Now, it's going to stay active in just a couple of communities due to some contracts that were in effect, and they can't really do anything about it. But they, for the most part in Texas, all of these all of these red light cameras will be gone. Now, they're justifying this by saying that, yes, it did seem to be reducing side impact collisions because people were running stoplights less, but there was a heightened likelihood of rear end collisions due to sudden braking. Well, that's a good point, because if you know that red light camera is going to get you, you're going to lock it up even when you see a yellow, and the person behind you may not be expecting it, and then that's going to cause a rear end accident. Plus, they also wanted to add that adding one of these cameras at an intersection can cost $100,000. Now, personally, I don't understand why that would cost that much, but hey, this is government, they spend, thousands of dollars on a toilet seat from what we've heard in the past. So that's the way government works. So anyway, good for Texas for helping everybody out in this regard. I don't think anybody likes those red light cameras, do they? If you are, you're just a dang weirdo. Landline.media for this one. All right, now let's head to New Jersey, where rarely anything good happens. Landline.media. Sorry if you're from New Jersey, but that's true, right? So anyway, this one is called Idling Time Limit for Cars and Trucks, Topic of New Jersey Bill. Now, when I first saw this, I thought, hey, that's good. They're finally going to address the fact that you can't idle a truck in New Jersey. Well, not for very long anyway. Right now, the rule is 3 minutes, no more than 3 minutes. But there are some exceptions. I didn't know about some of these exceptions. It looks like there is an exception for, running your auxiliary power unit if you have that. And apparently, if you have a diesel particulate filter, a truck that has a 2007 or later engine in it, there was some exemption for them if you were sleeping or resting. That was a new one for me. I had not heard that one before. But now, of course, it never gets better. It's getting worse. They now decide they want to reduce that idle time from 3 minutes to 2 minutes. How do you like that? Golly. Is that really 1 minute really going to save that much? I mean, even it's funny because the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, they state that, quote, modern diesel engines do not need to keep engines running to properly function. Okay, maybe that's true, but you do need to keep, it running to make a human function properly so they can sleep. Additionally, they say, quote, get the load of this. Idling produces ground level ozone and particulate pollution. These can create asthma attacks, wheezing, coughing, lung cancer, and even premature death. Close quote. Golly. Talk about an over-exaggeration. How many people have ever had an actual premature death because of idling your truck? I've never gone into a asthma attack, which I don't have asthma, so I don't know. Maybe that's an issue. If you have asthma, write in. Tell me, have you ever had an asthma attack because you were idling your truck? Sure, there can be leaks and it can get in your truck and it could even cause a premature death. But how often does that really happen? Come on. New Jersey, really? Wow. Anyway, you do want to be aware of this stuff because the first offense for a commercial vehicle is $250. And if you get caught after that, it can range anywhere from another $200 up to $1,000. Yowza. Now, it does not say in this new bill what kind of new exemptions. So maybe 2007 and newer trucks, with the DEF, maybe they'll still be exempt. Who knows? It doesn't really say in here, but the way New Jersey is, I'll not hold my breath on that one. Landline.media if you want to see the bad news for yourself. Hey, you remember a few episodes we talked about how Tesla was getting ready to release their first semi-trucks to PepsiCo? Well, Tesla's back in the news, not only for Twitter. Elon Musk took over Twitter and the world is going insane right now. So anyway, found this one on freightwaves.com. The title, Tesla Semi completes first 500-mile journey with full load. So yes, this happened recently. It doesn't exactly say when, but they did their first 500-mile trip with a load weighing 81,000 pounds. This is according to Tesla owner Elon Musk. Now, this is important because as we've talked about in the past that, these electric trucks, the biggest problem with them is range. Now, 500 miles is a pretty good day for a long-haul trucker, but it's nowhere near what you can do. Heck, I'm in a really freaking slow fleet truck, and I did 660 miles the other day in 11 hours. So, actually about 10 hours and 40 minutes or so. But still, you can do a lot more than that, but 500 miles would it's getting you most of the way there. And for a first attempt, this is pretty impressive, I would say. I know a lot of the other semis out there, electric semis that they're talking about, don't have that kind of range right now. They're just looking at local cartage and things like that for those. So anyway, just going to be very interesting to watch this as it moves on. It is kind of funny right down here. At the bottom, Tesla keeps talking about the acceleration on this thing. They're like 0 to 60 in 20 seconds for a fully loaded truck with 82,000, pounds gross weight. Really? Who's going to want to go that fast? I mean, if you go 0 to 60 in 20 seconds in a semi that's fully loaded, you're going to have freight freaking everywhere. Let's hope you don't have anything valuable on there or heaven forbid something like glass or God, really, hazmat, for Pete's sake. Be careful out there in these trucks if you ever get a chance to drive one. So anyway, one little factoid here is they're saying that the estimated fuel savings for one of these vehicles versus a conventional diesel-powered truck is $200,000 over 3 years. Well, that might justify the higher prices, although they did say that previously they had priced them at the 300-mile range version was going to be $150,000 and the 500-mile truck was going to be $180,000, which was way less than what they initially announced. They were talking about it running about $320,000, I think, and that is way out of line. But, $180,000 for a 500-mile truck is not unreasonable, especially if you're going to be able to save that much money in fuel over 3 years. But anyway, it does say here that it's unclear if the prices have changed. So, prices could go up or down here. Hopefully they won't go up any. But hey, congratulations, Elon Musk, on reaching your goal. He did announce a long time ago that these would be out way before now. They were supposed to be in production back in 2019. But 3 years later, and, he tweeted earlier this year that, hey, he was going to have trucks out on the road by the end of the year. And by gum, look at what he did. There we go. Check out this full article on freightwaves.com. All right. How about a little update on the looming railroad strike that obviously, if you've paid attention to the news at all, has been avoided. I found two different articles here. One is on Transport Topics, that's ttnews.com, and the other is on freightwaves.com. Both of them have basically the same information, but slightly different. So I put links to both of those in the show notes for you. So I think freightwaves.com has the best headline. Senate votes to force labor agreements on rail workers minus sick leave. And sick leave was the big showstopper here. Apparently, I don't remember how many, but there's like 12 railroad unions, ranging from, a group that does, maintenance on the equipment, and others that like lay track, and others that are engineers and rail workers and stuff like that who work out in the yards. All kinds of different unions going on with the railway. And most of them had passed this, but there were a few holdouts, and it was all because of paid sick leave. Now, as I mentioned before, I am a Teamster, which is, largely trucking. And, I get 5 sick days, paid sick days every year. That's kind of the way it's been for a long time with the company I work for. And I thought that was pretty standard for union stuff, but apparently it is not. The railroads here have only had 1 paid sick day. Now, to be fair, one of these articles, I can't remember which one it is. Like I said, good information in both of these. They were asking for 15 days of paid sick leave. But all this agreement just basically didn't allow any at all. Now, apparently there was a couple of separate bills going on here. One was, from the House of Representatives, and it did include a guaranteed 7 days of paid sick leave, but that was struck down, in the Senate by a vote of 52 to 43. They needed 60 votes to pass. But regardless, this disaster has been avoided. As far as I can tell, there is nothing really the union can do about this. They just have to comply because this is federally mandated now. President Biden did sign it. So as far as I can tell, this is going to take effect. They cannot do anything about it. They cannot strike. If they do, it's illegal and they can be arrested for it. And if they were to do a strike, it would be what's called a wildcat walkout, which basically is a walkout without the approval of the union, that the workers just decide to walk out. But when they do that, the employers can legally replace them, or basically get a federal judge to order the strikers to go back to work. So it's really not a good option. It happens sometimes, but you're probably just going to get fired and you're just going to move on. And that is not the goal of these union workers. They just want to get some paid sick days. Now, to be fair, they do have some decent amount of personal leave days and 3 weeks of paid vacation. So they've got some time, but apparently, even though they have that, it is very inflexible. And at one point they were even saying that if you took off for medical leave or family emergency or sickness or whatever, that you would be penalized for that. So as you can see, it's not very flexible, which is why they were going for some actual, written language in the contract for paid sick leave, which again, they did not get. Now, I do believe there's some significance going on here. Again, this is not trucking related. I understand it, but there are unions in the trucking industry. Some of the big ones are UPS, Yellow is union, ABF is union. I know there's lots of other little unions, but those are the 3 big ones that are unions. So this whole thing with the unions. Now, I don't know if you're aware of this, and hopefully this won't get political. I will try my best, but this is rife for political stuff going on here because, quite frankly, the Democrats have always touted themselves as the labor-friendly party, that they are totally behind the unions and they stick up for the common man and all that stuff. But boy, howdy, they sure are not showing it in this move, are they? I mean, I can tell you as a Teamster that, back when Trump was running for office and he was asking for Teamster votes because, he approved the Yellow deal and got them the $700 million loan and all that stuff. And so he went to James Hoffa, who was the president at the time, and he said, hey, can you get your vote on this? Can I get the backing of the union? And basically Hoffa said, sorry about that. We appreciate the loan, but we've already given our votes and all of our money and our support behind the Democrats. And To which Trump replied, well, that's okay because I know I have the members, which, a lot of people would say, no, you don't. Well, there are a lot of Democrats in the Teamsters for sure. And I'm sure there are a lot of Democrats in the railroad unions for sure. But there are also a lot of Republicans in there too. So, I mean, I know for a fact, I mean, there's Facebook pages, dedicated to Teamsters who are for Trump, like that or hate that, whatever. There's both sides of this, but in general, the union themselves, like the bigwigs, the bosses, they've always put their money and their efforts and everything behind the Democratic Party to promote them and get them elected because they perceive them as being on their side. Now, again, not going to get too political here, but that is up for grabs when you look at all the things that they have done in the past. But I'm going to take a quote here from the Transport Topics article. Again, you can find all of these articles in the show notes. This is from a union group. They quoted, "The Senate just failed to pass 7 days of paid sick leave for rail workers. We are grateful to the 52 senators who voted yes and stood with rail workers." That was tweeted by the Transportation Trades Department Labor Coalition. And the quote goes on, "Shame on the 43 elected leaders who abandoned the working class. We will not forget it." So maybe some of those Democrats who are voting on this are, I don't know, maybe that could swing the tide of things. And, whether you like that or not, maybe the labor will start going more for Republicans, maybe not. Personally, I don't think politics should be involved at all in a union. I don't think if they're going to support it, they should do like most big corporations and support both parties in case whoever gets in, they've got favor with both of them. I don't like this system at all where you can pay to, I'm going to pay you, I'm going to help you get elected, and then you're going to do me a favor down the road. But that's the way these things work. So personally, as a conservative, I would rather them just be neutral. I got to say, I don't want them to be conservative. But I certainly don't want them to be liberal either. I want them to be neutral. I mean, this is labor we're talking about. What's it got to do with politics? Job of a union is to represent the worker, right? And what's disturbing about this whole thing is the government just took the right of the union to strike out of their hands. And that is disturbing to me as a union member because the strike is the worst. It's the biggest thing we have to hold over a company. A lot of times the workers don't have a lot to stick up for except for the fact that you can strike and it could put the company in a major problem. And so they have to take you seriously because of that threat of strike. But now here the government steps in and just says, nope, can't do that. Kind of takes the wind right out of your sails, doesn't it? What's the point of the union if they can't threaten a strike? Now, obviously, nobody likes a strike. Everybody hates strikes. Even the people who are doing strikes don't want to be in a strike. They want to come to an agreement that suits everybody, that, benefits the worker and benefits the company. But if it comes to a standstill, sometimes the strike is the only option. I mean, if you think about it, if you learn from the past, the reason we have 5-day work weeks, the reason we have paid vacation time, we have child labor laws and things like that are all because of strikes. Go back and check it out. That's the way it worked. So the strike is an important thing for the union. And in this case, the government took that ability away. So pro-labor? I don't know. We'll see. So enough about that. I just probably talked about something most of you are not interested at all. But, as a union member, I am very interested in this stuff and I find it very fascinating. And you may too one day, because I never thought I would ever be a part of a union. And yet here I am. So I might want to keep a heads up on this stuff. And quite honestly, I can't believe it, but I was siding with Bernie Sanders on this one. Never thought that would happen. But here we go. All right. Again, you can find these articles on ttnews.com. That's Transport Topics. And the other one is on freightwaves.com. Boy, I rambled on that one way longer than I thought I was going to. Sorry about that. Let's move on. You know, I don't have to tell you that the economy sucks right now. And since money's tight for everybody right now, you can imagine that sometimes shippers just may want to hold on to their money just a little longer than you'd like them to. Well, that's where Porter Freight Funding comes in. You can learn more at porterfreightfunding.com/truckerdump or give them a call at 205-576-8257. So how can Porter Freight Funding help? Well, Porter Freight Funding specializes in funding you, and that's when you don't get paid on time. You don't want to mess with this. Let them take care of it for you. All you have to do is once you have an account by going to porterfreightfunding.com/truckerdump, it's just a simple 3-step process. Drop off your load, submit your paperwork to Porter Freight Funding, and get paid within 24 hours. No muss, no fuss, no getting pissed off all the time because you're not getting paid. Now, hopefully you'll find Porter Freight Funding such an easy way to collect money that you'll just let them take care of all your accounts for you. But if you just want to use them for those pain in the butt customers, they're fine with that too. So what the heck are you waiting for? Head on over to porterfreightfunding.com/truckerdump or give them a call at 205-576-8257. And when you're over there, be sure to ask them about their brokering services, dispatching, fuel cards, insurance, and they can even help you with compliance and getting your own authority. So give them a call today and help the Trucker Dump podcast out, would you? All right. Thanks to Porter Freight Funding for sponsoring this episode of Trucker Dump. Well, we just talked about a move the Senate made that, well, I wasn't really a big fan of, even though, nobody wants a railroad strike. It's, horrible. It would have caused mass chaos in the industry. Everybody knows that. I think 400 industry associations wrote in urging the government to step in and stop that. And, well, they did. And, well, I shared my feelings on that. But on this instance, I kind of like what the senators are doing. But it is only 10 senators, I guess. So what they are doing is opposing the new emissions standards that have been put forth by the EPA. That's the Environmental Protection Agency. So they're saying that there are two options that the EPA is pushing, and that is going into effect. They're trying to do it by March. They're saying option one would reduce NOx emissions by 90% by the year 2031. That's the one they're opposed to. The option these senators are pushing for is option 2 that aims to reduce NOx emissions by 75% overall, and that's for model year 2027 commercial motor vehicles and later. So they're saying the strict option 1, that's cutting 90% of emissions, wow, by 2031. That's not that far away. They're saying that would place a major burden on the trucking industry. They're saying it would raise the price of a diesel truck by about $42,000. Yowza. As well as increased operating costs. Wow, that's amazing. So they're saying this really has the potential to put truckers out of, especially small truckers, not small in stature. I mean, small in size. Well, size, you know what I mean? Few trucks, the small owner operator, they are the ones who are risked at going out of business here. And they are saying, really, we cannot afford to do this. Please stop this. Now, again, on a political note, here we go. Guess what? All of the ones who are against the EPA, surprise, are Republicans. What a surprise. I mean, liberal, conservative, whatever, everybody understands that the eco pushers are the liberals and the Democrats. So it should come as a surprise to no one that all of these are Republicans who are pushing against it. Now, I am not saying as a Republican, and a conservative, I am not saying that I do not believe that we have no impact on the earth. I'm not saying that. I'm not a denier. I'm just saying that we don't take it as seriously as the Democrats do. We don't think there's such a major problem as they do also. Again, I don't want to get too political here. I'm off stepping in the weeds as is. As you can tell, I'm tripping over my own words trying to stay out of trouble. So let's just stick with that. And if you want to read more about what these senators are doing to fight the EPA, go and check it out on cdllife.com. Whew. Hopefully we're through with all the political stuff. It's like dodging landmines out here. Hey, we've talked recently about how individual truckers have tried to get exemptions from the hours of service or maybe even the ELDs themselves, and how that failed for one particular driver recently. And I just saw another story that yet another driver has filed for these things again. Well, another group that has been trying to get some of these rules lifted for them is the agricultural, specifically the livestock haulers. So I found this one on freightwaves.com. FMCSA rejects work rule exemption for livestock haulers. So this was filed all the way back in 2018, and they were trying to get exemptions for the 11-hour driving limit and the 14-hour driving window. And they were saying, that just doesn't take into account live cargo, because you need to get live cargo to someplace to eat. You can't keep them on the truck for long periods of time. You have to get them there as soon as possible. They are already exempt from like the 30-minute break rule. They don't have to do that. And they have other exceptions. For instance, they already are exempt from, they don't have to obey hours of service regulations if they're only driving within 150 air mile radius from where the livestock is sourced. And last year, with the new infrastructure law, it also allowed them to be exempt when driving within 150 air mile radius from the livestock's final destination. So basically, if you think about that, say 150 miles air mile, say you go, that's about what, 2.5 hours? Let's say it's 2.5 hours at 60 mile an hour. You don't even have to log that until you get 2.5 hours away from the place you picked up that livestock. And then, you could drive for 11 hours. And then on the other end, you'd have another 2.5 hours if you can average 60 mile an hour to get to the final destination. You don't have to log the end of the trip or the beginning of the trip as long as it's within 150 air mile radius of the shipper or the receiver. Man, that can open up some big time, options. They were saying, the FMCSA denied this, saying, hey, that means you're going to be able to drive up to 21 hours during one work shift. And they said that is just too much. And well, I honestly have to agree with them. I know a gentleman who does this as on an agriculture exemption. He hauls that anhydrous stuff, the fertilizer, and he's safe. I trust him, but I don't trust everyone doing it. So, I don't know. These rules are already pretty darn lenient. I know my friend, he's a hard charger. I mean, he could go, but he gets tired after some of these long days too. And he takes full advantage of these rules for sure. We tease him about it quite often. How many miles did you drive today? Only 900. What? But it's legal when you're under that agriculture exemption. So anyway, this was blocked, like I said, by the FMCSA. So that is not going to be happening. They're still going to only be able to drive 900 or 1,000 miles a day. That's all. Poor guys and gals. I feel so sorry for you. Check this one out, freightwaves.media. No, freightwaves.com. Got them and landline mixed up. Oops. Okay, remember a while back we talked about how some safety groups were pushing for ELDs to be mandated on older trucks. As of now, you do not have to run an ELD on a truck that is pre-2000, has a pre-2000 engine in it, I should say. So, that's where these glider kits come in. You can have a 2015 body and put a 2000 engine in it or a 1999 engine, and that way you don't have to run an E-log. Well, they're coming after that, or they would like to anyway. They were taking comments on this up through November 15th, so that is over at this point, and they're just, evaluating all the data and all the comments that they got from this, and just to see if they want to pursue this or not. Now, of course, people who are against this, which is pretty much every trucker out there, even those of us who don't, drive an older truck like that. And that's largely because all the surveys and not surveys, the crash data and stuff is just not proving out that these electronic logging devices are helping. They've been mandated since 2018, but since 2017, fatality crashes have risen by 14.5%. So what is up with that? We get ELDs and now the crashes actually go up. You would think the FMCSA would be looking at that and backtracking on that and saying, okay, we need less restrictive rules or just get rid of these ELDs altogether. Again, they're never going to do that because, it appears that it's safer to have people being monitored 24 hours a day. But anyway, I digress on that. That's really about all there is to that. But one of the really funny things I loved on this one, again, this one is on landline.media, if I didn't mention that earlier, was that OOIDA kind of turned the FMCSA's rules back on themselves. You know how we talked about before how the FMCSA has this rule where, you've got to be able to prove that what you want to do is going to either be more safe or have an equal level of safety. Well, as I said before, how do you know until you try it? I mean, maybe some things are black and white and you just know that when you do it, it just makes complete sense. It's going to work. It's going to be more safe. But in most cases, you just kind of got to try these things. I mean, they introduced the ELD assuming it was going to make things safer, but it didn't, did it? So OOIDA on here, they quote, the agency lacks data confirming the ELD mandate has improved highway safety and has failed to demonstrate how the expansion of existing requirements to vehicles operating on pre-2000 and rebuilt 2000 engines would enhance safety. So I think that's hilarious. They kind of turn their own wording back on themselves. Like, hey, you're not being able to prove it either. We can't prove certain things and you're not giving it to us, and you can't prove certain things and you're giving it to us anyway. Double standard. What do you know? World's full of them. So anyway, I just thought that was pretty funny that they turned their own words back against them. I love it. Landline.media for that bit of snark if you want to check it out for yourself. God, I love that. Okay, we just talked about how the FMCSA is being boneheads. Now let's talk about them doing something that is actually smart. Again, we'll go right back to landline.media for this one. FMCSA again waives certain CDL skills test requirements. So these waivers had actually been in effect before. They expired on November 30th, but they were part of the whole, we need to get more truck drivers in and COVID's causing problems with us getting drivers tested and there's not enough drivers. And just to hurry the process along, they made these waivers. So these waivers are basically saying that there was a restriction that limits a state to administer a CDL skills test only to someone who is an out-of-state, only if the out-of-state applicant had taken driver's training in that state. So they had lifted that and said that, you can, for instance, like when the Evil Overlord and I went to school, we lived in Missouri, but we took our school in Kansas, and it would have been nice to go back to Missouri and get our license. But they're saying, before you couldn't do that. I had to get my license in Kansas, and then we had to swap it over to Missouri, which was kind of stupid and a pain in the butt, and just took extra time and money. So they lifted that, saying, now you can go to another state, get your training, and then you could go back to your state or just go ahead and get your license right there. So that's good. Get your skills test done right there in the state. There was also a rule that said that if once you got your learner's permit, you were not eligible to take the CDL skills test in the first 14 days. I really don't know why that would be. I mean, if you can get a learner's permit and pass in 14 days, I don't see what's any big deal to them. But they had that rule in effect for a while, but they lifted it for COVID. And now they're actually adding that back in. And of course, this is all under the guise of driver shortage, which again, most of us know there is no such thing as a driver shortage. There's a shortage of companies that are willing to pay their drivers well enough to keep them. But that's a whole other topic. For this, check out landline.media and learn about these waivers if you're interested at all. Of course, if you're listening to the show, you probably already have your CDL license and you couldn't give one rip about that. But hey, I know we got some new listeners on here and, well, not necessarily new listeners, but people who are not truckers yet. And I appreciate you guys listening, of course, guys and gals. Sorry, there I go again. But I appreciate you listening. I hope this helps you with your endeavor to get a CDL. Again, find this on landline.media. Of course, the best way to do it is just to go to the show notes and click on that link right there. You know, I put work into those show notes. You might as well freaking use them. Wish somebody would. Okay, here's that story I was talking about in the intro where I was saying that the FMCSA is actually dumping some money into some research that might actually pay off. Found this one on landline.media. Boy, I'm there a lot this week, aren't I? Research to look into driving behavior around commercial motor vehicles. Okay, great. So for once, we are not focusing on the trucker, but we are focusing on the people who drive around the truckers. This grant from the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, or FMCSA, is being given to the Louisiana State University. They're going to be conducting all this research. So what they're saying is that we have lots of information on crashes, and we know that fatal crashes are on the rise. The problem is we don't know who is at fault and why these accidents are happening. So they're saying they're planning to build dashboards to provide insight into what factors contribute to crashes with commercial motor vehicles. Now, I don't know what they mean by dashboards. I assume they mean like dash cams or something, but it doesn't really say. But anyway, like for instance, they noticed that recently that there's been a lot more sideswipe crashes with commercial vehicles on Interstate 10 in New Orleans. And they're wondering, why is that? Well, there has been discovered recently that there was a fraud situation going on recently. It was called Operation Sideswipe. About 50 people have been charged in it, and where they were actually sideswiping trucks on purpose to get the insurance claims. And this was being run by a personal injury attorney. So, hey, one more reason to hate those guys. But anyway, I hope something comes of this. I hope, when they look at why drivers and how drivers are driving around trucks, they will see that they are a bunch of nutbags, and they will start contributing some of these accidents to the cars instead of the trucks. Lord knows we're already in the target enough. We don't need to be targeted anymore. So hopefully this will pay off. Money well spent, FMCSA. At least let's keep our fingers crossed. Anyway, landline.media to learn all the details. This is an interesting topic I don't think we've ever discussed on here, and that is Facebook. We all know Facebook are a bunch of turds, right? The company in itself is borderline evil. I don't like them, which is really disgusting because I find myself on Facebook quite a bit consuming, looking at stuff on there, following interests that I'm interested in. And, they're always marketing to me a lot of things that I am not interested in whatsoever. But like I said, Facebook is known for their algorithms, for figuring out who to market to, and for their sleazy methods of doing it. Well, here is just another example of that one. Found this one on Transport Topics, that's ttnews.com. Facebook job ads illegally discriminate, female truckers claim. Well, they're not just claiming it. It seems like there is definitely some proof on here. Now, we all know that, in order to make advertising effective, you search for the group where you're going to get the most bang for your money. Now, you'd think trucking companies would be like, okay, just put all my money towards targeting men who are middle-aged or something like that. But here's the problem with this. A lot of these employers were not doing that. A lot of these trucking companies were not doing that. They were specifying, show this to people of all ages and all genders, but Facebook was not doing that. From their own online ad library, they went in and did some research on this and looked at what they were actually doing, and they were promoting these job ads to 99% male and 99% younger than age 55. So both sex and age discrimination going on there. Even though these employers, again, had suggested or basically told them, let everyone see these ads. Everybody who is a potential trucker, let them all see it. And why wouldn't they? You know, trucking companies nowadays are targeting women because there's so few of them in the industry, and it's an untapped potential out there, and also younger drivers. So it's very interesting that Facebook chose to go basically to only market these jobs to people that they'd deem necessary. Of course, Facebook had no comment on this, as they never do, but they're going to get some civil rights complaints on this from women's organizations and stuff like that. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully Facebook would just quit doing this kind of crap, but that is never going to happen. They just get caught, they get slapped on the hand, and they just go back to doing it again. And they are so big, even companies like Apple and Google cannot keep them off their platforms. If they would just punish them and say, you're off of it, every Facebook user who demanded that they were on Facebook would be yelling and screaming at Facebook to get their crap together. But actually, that's probably not true. They'd probably just blame Apple and Google or the phone manufacturers, which it's not their fault. Anyway, I digress. If you're interested in this one, which you probably should be, if you care about fairness at all, head on over to Transport Topics. That's ttnews.com. Facebook. Like I said, if you work there, you're probably a turd. What say we head over to cdllife.com to learn what you should do if you're ever in a snow squall pileup. Yeah, we keep hearing about these big pileups on the road, snow everywhere. You can't see where you're going. Drivers are driving too fast for conditions, and a big pileup ensues. And, well, that's a dangerous situation to be in. So the Pennsylvania State Police are offering some advice on this. Now, most of this is just common sense, but for Lord knows people don't have common sense nowadays. So, number one, do not stand outside your vehicle if it is on or near the roadway. Duh. Yet almost every time you see these videos showing on here, you show somebody who's like standing outside their vehicle, taking pictures or talking on their phone or something like that, and they're just asking to be smushed between vehicles. Don't do that. They're saying number two, instead, seek a safe place well off the roadway behind a guide rail or a concrete barrier or a large tree as far away from the roadway as possible. That's true. Number three, if there's no safe place to stand outside of your vehicle, stay in your vehicle with the seatbelt fastened. And number four, and I had not thought of this one actually, is if it is possible, drive slowly forward towards the front of the pileup. That makes sense. If there's a little bit of space you can drive forward, it will give more cushion, so if you got 5 or 6 trucks or cars and trucks behind you, when they hit each other, they can have some cushion and they can smash themselves up, but you'll hopefully be too far forward for them to hit you and, cause you to hit the next guy in front of you and cause a domino effect. So anyway, there you go. Like I said, these are pretty common sense things, but if you want to, make a screenshot of this or something like that just so you can have them if you're a complete idiot and can't remember 4 things, especially 4 logical things that you're probably going to do anyway, head on over here to cdllife.com. Hey, this next one I know is not going to affect most of you because, well, if you're an owner-operator already, you don't probably need to know this stuff. You've already been through it. And if you are a company driver, most of you are probably not considering becoming an owner-operator. But for the few of you who are, here is a link over on overdriveonline.com. Know the full extent of your costs before going independent. I'm just going to run down a few of them just so you can get a gist of all you're getting ready to bite off if you go into this. There's rates and lanes, there's compliance, safety, drug testing, hours of service, accounting, fuel tax, mileage tax. That's just to name a few, not counting, all of insurance and car or truck payments and compliance and all that other stuff. Well, they listed in that, but yeah. Crazy amount of stuff you need to know here. There's some details in here and there's some links to learn more. If you're interested in this and ever becoming an owner operator, have a look at this. overdriveonline.com. Otherwise, let's move on. How about a couple quick articles from landline.media? Hey, you remember in the last episode? Probably the one before that. Anyway, we were talking about the Truckers for Troops that OOIDA puts on every year. That's the Owner-Operator Independent Driver Association. And this is the one where you donate and they will send off care packages to whatever branch that you choose. Apparently, they do let you choose. And the Army won this year with 215 votes and the Marines came in second. So I don't know if that just means that owner-operators who are members of OOIDA typically were in the Army, and so they want to support that more, or maybe they have children that are in the Army more than the Marines or whatever. I don't exactly know why that is, but interesting. Anyway, they saw 1,500 participate for a total of $20,672 this year. Of that amount, just over 11,500 came from dues, while the rest was from individual donations. So that's cool. Really cool thing that they're doing here every single year. So if you count this year also, they have contributed to over $750,000 for Truckers for Troops. That's pretty cool. And also something cool that OOIDA does is they provide scholarships. Now, I did not know this, probably because I am not a member at the time. I was briefly. I need to just pay that $200, I think it is, and just become a lifetime member, because they do a lot of good things for company drivers also. Don't agree with everything they do because they do have a owner-operator bias, but you know, hey, it's a trucking organization that is by and large sticking up for truckers. But besides that, anyway, there are scholarships to be had if you are an OOIDA member, and you can seek these out for your children, or actually your children have to seek them out for themselves. They will be required to write a word essay, a 500-word essay, and you'll have to supply transcripts from high school or other learning institutions, and they need to get these by February the 1st if you're an OOIDA member. And there's actually another reason to be an OOIDA member. So as part of this program, there's one $2,000 scholarship and four $1,000 scholarships awarded every year. And if you are already a recipient of one of these, all you have to do is fill out a form, and it can be renewed for all 4 years of a 4-year college. So that is pretty cool. And that's a pretty awesome benefit of being a member of OOIDA. So if you're interested in that, go check out this link, and there is a way to, become a member right there. Check this one out, landline.media. Actually, both those articles, landline.media. All right, to finish up the news, I'm going to try to not be all preachy, but, well, here it goes. Landline.media. Okay, we've talked about St. Christopher's Truckers Relief Fund before. That is an organization that helps truckers when they're out of work for whatever reason long term, and they need some help just paying the bills. This is an organization that, will help you with that. But here's a service I didn't even know they offered. It's called Rigs Without Cigs. This program started in 2017, and they say they have helped nearly 180 drivers quit smoking since that time. Wow. Like I said, didn't even know this existed. So St. Christopher here is wanting to remind all Class A over-the-road drivers to take advantage of its free program. It's free. So I know a lot of people who want to quit smoking, who say they want to quit, but they don't for whatever reason. Well, this is proven effective for 180 drivers. So, hey, if you've tried everything else, why not give this Rigs Without Cigs program a shot? Like, say, it's free. You're going to get lots of support from them. And why not join the ranks of people who can say, hey, I quit smoking years ago? I know some people can just put it down. The guy who mentored me at this, at my company that I'm at now, he's retired now, but he told me when he quit smoking, he just decided he was going to quit smoking. He put the cigarette down and he never touched another one. He still loves the smell of it. He stands downwind any chance he can of somebody smoking, but he just quit smoking. And How amazing is that? Yet other people try and try and try, and they quit for a while, and then they say, I can quit anytime I want. But they quit for like 2 weeks, and then they go back and do it again. I understand from what I don't understand because I've never had an addiction like that. And I've been told I cannot possibly understand how hard it is to quit smoking. I remember Nick one time, a long time ago. By the way, Nick, where are you in the Trucker Dump Slack group? I haven't heard from you in a while. But anyway, I remember one time he said he runs triathlons, and he goes, I would rather do a triathlon, lots of them. It's much, much easier than trying to quit smoking. So that tells you how hard that is. But he did it. Lots of people can do it. You can do this too. Give them a shout over here and get signed up for this and give it another shot. Don't give up. As a friend of mine says, well, I've got to die of something. Well, yeah, you do, but you don't have to, lug around an oxygen tank with you, until the day you die. That would be miserable, right? So anyway, check this out and please consider joining, because you know what? Even though you don't really care about your health that much, maybe someone in your family does, like your kids. Do it for the kids, man. All right. Well, that is going to do it for the news segment this time around. Looks like we're going to have a whopper of a show here, but we're not done yet. We don't have a Trucker Grub segment this time, although if you would like to submit one, if you've got a favorite place to eat out on the road that you can get a truck into, tell me where it's at. Give me a link, or a phone number or something, some way to get a hold of him, the name of the place, what kind of food they have, atmosphere, good meals that you've enjoyed there, things like that. Keep it 3 minutes or less. It's got to be audio only. That's the only way I accept these things. Just open your phone, get out your voice memo app, speak directly in your phone with the truck turned off, preferably. Send it off to truckerdump@gmail.com. So while we don't have a Trucker Grub segment this time, we do have listener feedback. Hopefully that guy in the truck will be here any minute.
Hey, yo, bud, where do you want this load of feedback?
About time that guy show up. Stupid truckers, always running late. Well, hopefully I can get through this pretty quick because my vocal cords are frying out, and I'm afraid if they keep rubbing together, they're so freaking dry, they're going to start a fire or something. So let's get on with it. First, we're going to hear from Steve Taylor. He writes, Hey, Todd, it's been 5 years since I left you any feedback. The last time I had just found the podcast and was enjoying them. When you decided to do one a week, I thought that would never happen. Me too, Steve, me too. He says you weren't able to keep up with putting out one a month. You surprised me and are doing it. Good job. Thank you, Steve. And here's where it turns. He says, now for some criticism. To me, it seems like the podcast has become Todd reads the news and recalls. To be blunt, it's getting to be boring. I used to rush to listen to the Trucker Dump podcast. Now it's whenever I get around to it and have nothing else to listen to. I really don't mean to be such a downer, but I know you can do better. You might need to go back to monthly. Give us some tips on how to be better drivers, how to make the job easier, how to deal with shippers and receivers, how to be safe on the road and doing our jobs, how to trip plan and to make the most of our hours. How about some stories about things that have happened while driving, whether good or bad? For me, I'm in the 25th year of trucking. It was a dream job as a young boy. I used to look forward to driving and being in the truck. Anymore, I can't wait to get out of the truck. I hear you there, Steve. The lack of common sense and courtesy. I can understand cars cutting me off, delays at shippers and receivers, but the crap so-called drivers do now, I just don't understand it at all. I'm so tired of seeing all the accidents. I never used to worry if I was going to make it back or not. Anymore, I'm not so sure. Trucking overall is sort of what you make of it. I myself would never make it at one of the mega carriers. Too much micromanagement. What is working for me is driving for a small medium company. I'm a name here, not a number. 97% drop and hook. When it's a live load or unload, it's rare to take more than an hour from the time you arrive and leave. My normal week is 4.5 days with right about 3,000 miles for the week. Home every weekend. Wow, that's awesome. On a final note, at the end of every podcast, you sign off with who I believe is your nephew saying, Todd doesn't know what he's doing. But what I hear is Todd's touching no one, killing. I don't know. He says, well, here's some feedback for you. Just remember you asked for it. Yes, I did, Steve. I appreciate feedback. I love constructive criticism, and that's exactly what this was. And see, this is the way you write a critical email. You start out with a compliment. You say, hey, it's great. You're doing the weekly podcast. Congratulations. Never thought you'd be able to do it, but you pulled it off. Woohoo, look at you go. Now, let me tell you why the podcast sucks. Now, I know Steve didn't say that, but, I get it, Steve. I really do. I think I've said on this podcast before that I would understand if people quit listening, because this Trucker Dump podcast is not the Trucker Dump podcast that it was when I started it in 2012. Actually, I started the podcast in 2012. I started the blog in 2009, I believe it was. But anyway, I get it. It's totally different. Back then, everything was opinion pieces or how to make, the job easier or better or whatever. But pretty much everything you said in your list right here, I've already covered. And that's only partly why I switched to a news forecast, or why I started adding the news to the podcast is what I did initially when I was still trying to do opinion pieces and informational pieces in addition to that, have both in the same show. And as you know, those were getting really long. I know nobody seemed to mind the long episodes, but I didn't like the inconsistent schedule. It just piled up on me too much. And quite frankly, another reason is advertisers. They want somebody who's going to post steadily and regularly, not somebody who's going to post once every 2 months. And then the next time it's every 3 months. And then you get a month the next time. And then it's, 4 months the next time. And it's all over the map. Nobody wants that. Nobody's interested in advertising with you. I was very lucky to get the ones that I did. And actually, little known fact, I had to write into my contracts with these advertisers that you have to be okay with my weird, unsteady schedule. And I wrote in the contract, I am a truck driver full time, and I do these podcasts in my spare time. When I post is when I post. And you'll pay per episode or for affiliate fee or however they would agree to pay. But that was always written into my contract because I knew I could not be steady. But now I can be steady. Ironically, as you've probably noticed, most of my advertisers have dropped, but that is because of the economy. I believe some of them will be back, and hopefully other of them will do better in the future. I know Porter Freight Funding is having a problem right now getting people to call them. I don't know why that is. They offer a great service, and it would help out the show if you would call for sure. But, whatever the reason, I do understand. I really, really do. And to be completely honest with you, I am grateful for every single person who's stuck with the podcast and continues to stick with it, even though it's not really their bag of tea anymore. Because if it were me, I know I would not like this show now as much as I did back then. Just saying it. I don't want you to leave. I want you to stick around. I appreciate every single one of you who do, but that is the facts. I know the show was better in the past, and I'm going to see if maybe I can do something here. How about your feedback on this? What do you think? As you can tell from this, Steve writing in and telling me he didn't much like the show anymore and it was boring. It doesn't bother me. I want to hear that kind of information. I am not the kind of guy who says, give me constructive criticism, and then I get pissed off when you give it to me. I want to actually hear what you have to say and hopefully make the show better. So what Steve has made me start thinking about is, okay, well, maybe I don't do a news podcast every week. Maybe I do it 3 weeks and then I try to throw in an opinion piece once a month. Or maybe if I could work it up to 2 times a month, and maybe the opinion piece doesn't have to be a 2,500 word or 3,000 word essay that takes me 20 minutes to read, but I could just whip it out really fast, shorter articles. But again, I've covered lots of these topics already, and I feel like anything I do is going to just be rehash. Now, not everybody has heard every podcast from the beginning, so I guess that's one angle, I guess. But anyway, I'm going to look at it and see if maybe I can add some more variety into here. Now, to defend myself, Steve, I do not see myself as just reading the news. I don't want to hear that either. What I do feel like I do is I give you a summary of what the news stories are. If you actually went and clicked on the links in the show notes and looked at these articles, you would see that I am really summarizing. Some of these articles are really long. It takes me a long time to get through them, and then I summarize them to the best of my ability. And then I think the thing that this podcast offers, again, you folks tell me if I'm completely big-headed on this, but I'm offering my thoughts on this, which is what the podcast has said all along. One trucker's, insights and views into the trucking industry. That's what this is. This is the trucking news, and I briefly explain the story, and then I say what I think about the story. And apparently it's worked most of the time. And I feel like, honestly, I'm covering a lot of subjects like, how to be a better trucker, how to be more efficient, how to be safer, and things like that. I'm covering a lot of that while I do the news. That's what I feel. But that's, again, I don't know what you are thinking. You people who are listening right now, you tell me. Write in just like Steve did, truckerdump@gmail.com. Give me a nice long email like this telling me what you think of the show, what I could do better, all of that stuff. I would really appreciate it. Just as I appreciate Steve for being completely honest with me. I love this stuff. Awesome. So now let me go on to Jared Green. He goes by the name Trailrider, and he wrote something that piqued my interest, and I need your help with it, honestly. So he writes, Todd, I thought I would ask you and your listeners this question about the 60 in 7 or 70 in 8 days rule. What does the part about a company operating vehicles 7 days a week have to do with how many hours a driver is allowed to work in a given week? Example, my company operates vehicles 7 days a week, but all drivers are on a 5-day work week and back home every night. So the company now says we can work up to the 70-hour limit in 5 days. This makes no sense to me. The rule then says that if your company operates vehicles less than 7 days, that the drivers are not allowed to work over 60 hours in a week. I guess because our company has drivers working on 5-day alternate work week schedules, all 7 days of the week, we are somehow more capable and safer past the 60-hour mark on our 5th day than the company only operates trucks less than 7 days. And that's the end of his email. Well, Trailrider already knows more about this stuff than I do. I have never really known the details of what qualifies you under the 60 and 7 or the 70 and 8. I've always operated under the 70 and 8, and I didn't really even know why I qualified for that. So it's interesting to know that, he sent me a little graphic, and it explains it pretty well that, if you are working, if you have an operation that runs 7 days a week, again, let me just try to sum this up, Steve. So what he's saying is that why is it that if your company does not operate vehicles 7 days a week, you're under one rule, the 60 hours during 7 days. But if you operate every day of the week, you have to go on the 70-hour 8-day rule. I don't understand the difference safety-wise. And I think that's the gist of what Trailrider's getting here. If you can explain this to me and Trailrider, please write in and do so. truckerdump@gmail.com. I am just more and more confused the more I read about this. The logic just doesn't make sense to me. So no matter which of these systems you run under, if you understand it and the logic behind it, please write in and tell me about it. truckerdump@gmail.com. And be thorough in your email if you can, because there's nothing I hate more than a half-ass answered question. Which is why all my blog posts were 2,500 to 3,000 words long, and why my podcasts were so long is because when I covered a topic, I wanted to cover it. I didn't want anybody to be asking questions afterwards, which kind of defeated my purpose because I ran out of material eventually. Should have cut it up into a bunch of little 300 or 400 word ones, I guess. But anyway, I'm not real bright. Everyone knows that. All right. So anyway, thank you, Trailrider, for writing in with this question. I really appreciate it. Hopefully we will get an answer by the next podcast, or, sometimes it takes a while for people to get to the podcast. So, to each episode. So, maybe we'll hear an answer within the next month or so. Hopefully by the end of the year, we'll see. And thank you, Steve, for writing in. I do appreciate the constructive criticism. Glad you're still listening, at least for now. And I will hopefully try to do something to, I don't know. We'll see. This news podcast is a lot of work, but it's not as much work as trying to write a big, long podcast and do news on top of that. So maybe I can just, like I say, do one or the other depending on the week. I'll be mulling that over for sure. So with that, I'm going to try to get in bed. This recording took me 2.25 hours. And, I'm going to have to edit it tomorrow, which means I'm going to cut myself short on sleep again, just before I go home. But hey, that's what I do. As my father-in-law says, that's okay. I'm used to hardship. So anyway, let's thank our sponsor for this week, Porter Freight Funding. You can learn more by going to porterfreightfunding.com/truckerdump or give them a call at 205-576-8257. Of course, all this information will be available in the show notes. So give the podcast some help and give Porter Freight Funding a call. Well, I hate begging, but dang it, that's what it's come to. Like I said before, I've got some podcast expenses coming up and, I'm a bit short and need your help. If you've never contributed before, please consider doing so through abouttruckdriving.com via the donation button, the limited time 50% off ebook combo pack, or the Amazon affiliate link, which again doesn't cost you 1 penny more when you do your Christmas shopping, or any shopping for that matter. I'll put links to all three of those options in the show notes to make it nice and easy for you. As always, I do appreciate you following the show and reposting the show each week on your social media sites. You do that, right? So until next time, drive safe and stay out of my way. Trucker Dump, episode 182. This is going to be challenging today. This research is going to be done partnering with Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, or the FMCSA. They're using a grant that is given. Good God. I suck at this. Head on over there and check out those photos. Edit. Wow. You got to go over here and check out these photos. Wow. That is. You really got to go over here to, what the hell am I doing? I didn't know what the distinguishing what was that?